In scenic Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, African heritage and history combine to form a unique culture. During the slave trade, an estimated 4 million people were brought to Brazil. That harrowing past has led to a diverse present. According to the latest census, just over half of all Brazilians define themselves as black or mixed race. The influence of those African roots can be seen all around Rio, particularly in the population's religious beliefs.
Carlos is now going to take me to a church. This is Our Lady of the Rosary. And the reason it's important is because it was built by Afro-Brazilians for Afro-Brazilians back in the 1700s. Now, most of them were slaves, and even though they were slaves, the Portuguese rulers really wanted to convert them to Catholicism. So this church was built so that they could worship and they could get them out of those African religions, which they, of course, viewed as pagan with all of their gods and goddesses. So let's go inside and check it out.
Let's do it.
Great. So you were telling me, Carlos, that the carnival that we know in Rio with all these feathers and these dancers actually got its start in this church, is that right?
It is right. The black people that were part of this congregation, most of them came from Congo. So they were able to organize a type of celebration where they would choose a man and a woman, and they would be the king and the queen of Congo. And that celebration turned out to be, the beginning of Carnival celebrated in Brazil.
So you were saying there are actually a lot of black saints in Brazil. We'll find a lot of black saints like this one?
Yes. For instance, we have here Saint Benedict, who was brought as a slave from the north of Africa to the south of Italy. And during his lifetime as a slave, he made a promise. If he became a free man, he would devote himself to Catholicism.
So you were saying even Brazil's patron saint is black, right?
Yes, she is. Here we have is a Lady of Aparecida. What's interesting about her that she was found by a runaway African slave, a runaway Brazilian native man, also a slave, and with them there was a Portuguese man. They were going their way to a quilombo.
Which is a community of runaway slaves.
Exactly,
right.
Yes. As if she was appearing to blast them so they could make to the quilombo safely. Yes.
There are still quilombo communities around Brazil and Rio. We're headed to one now, an enclave in what is now a wealthy part of a big city, where the descendants of former slaves are making a living with a modest but successful restaurant that honors their heritage.
All right, I think this is it.
Let's check it out.
Now, must be up these stairs, so.
Yes. Like in Brazil,
Is that how you let people know you were arriving?
Yeah.
Okay. So should we expect a specific kind of food?
Yes, what we're gonna have here is feijoada. It's a typical Brazilian dish. Actually, it was a dish created by the slaves. Feijoada was everything that was left over from the big house into the slave quarters.
Right. All the leftover pork bits and pork
mainly
ears.
the meat.
Oi, boa tarde, tudo bem?
Tarde.
Eu sou a Shasta.
Eu sou a Aninha Franco.
Well, we're sitting down for this lunch here with Luis Sacopin. He's not only the president of the Association of Quilombos, or these communities that were founded by freed slaves. He also owns this little restaurant here. And basically, his grandparents escaped slavery, came to Rio de Janeiro, found this little piece of land in the jungle, and they seized it. And now there are 6 generations, 18 people living here. And for legal reasons, they're trying to keep a hold on it because they are freed slaves, they're descendants of freed slaves. I just wanted to understand a little more about the history. So, como que vocês conseguiram manter esse pedaço?
How did you manage to keep this piece of land in the middle of such an expensive part of Rio de Janeiro?
Muita luta, né? Muita.
With a lot of struggle and resistance and a lot of faith in God and our Orxis and ancestors helping us. Because we also have a strong spiritual side. Thanks to God, we have had success and we're still here at the end of our dispute.
These orishas, or spirits that Luis mentioned, trace their roots back to the Yoruba religion, which originated in southwestern Nigeria, Benin, and Togo. Slaves taken from those countries brought their religious beliefs here to Brazil, where the religion is known as candomblé. Carlos is taking us to the outskirts of Rio to learn more about the importance of orishas and local tradition.
Good. So we've come out to this satellite city of Rio de Janeiro called Nova Iguaçu, kind of a poor city compared to Rio, where candomblé, I guess, is fairly prevalent. But tell me exactly what we're going to see inside, Carlos.
We're going to see a party in honor of Omolu, who is the Orisha of this month. Each month there is a Orisha that is honored, and this month is the Omolu, and this is a party of one of the priests of the house, who is Omolu's daughter.
Great. Wow. Boa noite. So what, is this where the party's going on?
Yeah, this is the main area we call the Barracão. This is where, the ceremony takes place.
Great.
Right here,
Omolu is the Orisha of illness, transition between life and death.
Okay. Yes, he is the one that every Orisha is connected with an element of nature. Okay. So this one is connected with earth, the dirt.
So will we see, are there any elements here that will you can look at this and say, this is Omolu?
Yeah, interesting that you ask. For instance, the popcorn on the ground, that is the significance of Omolu.
Okay.
Different orishas have different food. Popcorn is one of the foods or one of the elements in nature that is also related to Omolu.
As the ceremony begins, the drummer calls out the orishas by name. Each person appears in the traditional African clothing of the orisha he or she is representing. Here, the woman with the straw and popcorn represents Omolu, the god of illness in the Afro-Brazilian religion.
Well, this is basically, they asked if anybody had any change to put it in, but even if you didn't, to take this popcorn home with you and keep it in a safe place, and it brings you a good energy, good luck.
Yes, the word used is ashe. Ashe is the words that describe all the positive energies in the world, in the universe. Yes.
So for now, I'll put it in my pocket, and when I get home, I'll think of something better. Denise has just thanked everyone for coming to this celebration for her Orisha. And now she's invited everyone to go to the feast. So I think that's, we'll go ahead and follow along. Let's find out. Now, candomblé originally comes from Africa, but does it still exist there? How is this different from what we're seeing in Africa?
Yeah, candomblé came to Brazil with slaves and was the religion they were practiced practicing, so they brought with them. It's still being practiced in Africa, west coast of Africa, where most of the slaves that came to Brazil originally from. And it's here is interesting because it's even more traditional than it is there. For instance, in Angola, where candomblé is still being practiced, has been adapted for the modern time. Candomblé in Brazil is still very traditional.
And it's actually very similar to what I've seen in Cuba, for example, Santeria.
Yes.
I imagine it's similar to other Caribbean,
Yes,
Caribbean countries
Yes.
where the slave trade went to similar places.
Yes. What you find, the difference that you find is, like, for instance, in Cuba, there will be some Orishas that are not here, and vice versa. It has to do with the location in Africa, even in the same country, where the slaves came from. But it's pretty much the same.
And even though, as we were saying before, a very small percentage of people in Brazil actually consider themselves or identify themselves as followers of Candomblé or Umbanda, and yet that religion permeates a lot of cultural activities like New Year's,
Yes.
So that these orishas are actually very present in the cultural life of Brazil.
Absolutely. It's interesting that candomblé was prohibited all the way up to 1950s. It was against the law to practice candomblé. Whatever we see it here tonight was not allowed to be done. And also, candomblé has a very strong influence in Brazilian culture. Not all of the food, the music, especially the music, the rhythms, the samba and other types of Afro-descendant rhythms.
Of course, no experience in Rio would be complete without exploring samba, the essence of Brazilian music with deep African roots.